Well, it's time for a video. It's time for a video. It's been a minute since I've done a video, and I'm gonna do a video. Do you like my new song? I made it for you. Hello, everybody. I just went and saw the newest Scream film, and I know that that sounds very risky, but don't worry, I didn't die. I somehow managed to go see the new Scream film in a theater and not catch the COVID. But here's the problem. I didn't die in the movie, and I kinda wanted to. Scream 5.
Doors unlocked. All doors locked. Doors unlocked.
So, if you know anything about Scream. Okay, do you know anything about Scream? Have you ever heard of it before? Do you also know who I am? Hello, my name is May, and we're gonna talk about Scream. Matthew Lillard is in Scream 1, and we all love him. He's Shaggy. We all love Matthew Lillard. One time I was at a convention, and I met Matthew Lillard, and I walked up to him and I said, "Hello, Matthew Lillard. You are super cool and in cool movies that I like Scream." And he said, "That's awesome. What film directors do you like?" And I said, "I really like John Carpenter." And he said, "It's a shame that John Carpenter is dead." I'm sorry, Matthew, but I don't believe that John Carpenter is dead. And he said, no, I'm certain. They broke that news pretty recently. Like very recently. Very recently. So I walked away from Matthew Lillard having the absolute certainty in my mind that my favorite horror film director had just died. And then I checked my phone and found that John Carpenter had tweeted minutes earlier and was not dead at all. Somehow this is kind of how this movie felt to me in a weird way. The Scream franchise for me is kind of mixed because I'm not the biggest fan of what I'm going to say are fairly shallow criticisms of a genre. So it's like, you can talk about horror in a billion ways. Horror movies have always had a predilection to kind of be weirdly violent against women. And I think that that is trying to incite a male protective urge to protect a woman. Therefore, they experience fear, pseudo-psychological level. But here's the problem. That's a bunch of horse shit. So we have postmodernized or meta-modernized horror in the way that women now, in the same way that I feel this way, have taken horror back. Yes, women are victims in horror movies, but that's a good thing because this gives us a chance to explore that victimhood. It gives us a chance to actually work through the trauma of existing as a woman in society. So it's no longer about trying to incite that white knight urge in men and more trying to help women cope with the reality of society. So horror movies truly are for the ladies. With that said, Scream is kind of like the epitome of the 90s horror movie for ladies. I mean, think about it. It's a movie filled with beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people. You got Courtney Cox, you got David Arquette, and how could I forget the absolute queen? What is her fucking name? I can never remember her name. What is her name? I'm gonna feel like a goddamn idiot. Neve Campbell. Neve Campbell is also just the queenest woman. We love Neve. She's great. I met her in 2014 and she was very, very nice to me. The first movie had a lot of kind of ideas. It's directed by Wes Craven, who I kind of have mixed views on. Generally, I know that he is dead, which means that I'm supposed to love him now, but I'm kind of mixed on his movies just in general. Some of his ideas I think were great and wild, but some of them I'm not a huge fan of. He made a lot of movies, but if there's anything to say, he was an ambitious man. He made a lot of movies, and Scream is kind of his definition of, hi everybody, I invented this genre. I am one of the people that created the genre is gonna go on long after I've died. And so in New Nightmare and in Scream, I'm gonna try and analyze the way that the world has changed because of the way that I work. Does that make sense? So Scream is weirdly personal. It's him trying to understand how the youth see the choices that he made and how that applies to like how they view their own endangerment and their own victimhood in a way that it almost makes like the killing of teenagers like theater production. And I think that that's like very literally what's happening. And then of course with the Stab movie, like cogency, like they're trying to make that tangible. So I like Scream. I think that Matthew Lillard gives a great performance. I think that it's a fascinating movie. It's kind of a rare watch for me. I like that Drew Barrymore dies like really, really early in it. That's great. I love that. That's wonderful for me. But like, it's kind of a 90s movie for me. It's good, but it's a little dated. Like sometimes it's nice to hop into the dated zone, but sometimes it's not. I don't know. And if I'm going dated, I usually head for the 80s. I don't know. And if there's something that's more like self-critical of horror, there's like a lot of stuff that's critical of horror. So Scream is just sort of like the most mainstream version of people being critical of horror, other than maybe like Cabin in the Woods. But Funny Games, it is not. Understand that Funny Games, it is not. So the Scream franchise becomes entirely a joke. Like that in and of itself. Like when you break down the idea of this series being a series based on criticizing its own place in pop culture, it becoming a series is almost like the bit in and of itself, but the problem is that they just don't make any good movies. And I think the big problem there is because they kind of said everything they wanted to say, which wasn't an awful lot pretty early on, and then they've just kind of kept saying it over and over and over with minor variations on technology. So the newest movie is Scream 5, or as they make a joke in the movie, they talk about, well, if they were going to reboot Stab, they would just call it Stab. They wouldn't call it Stab 8. They would call it Stab. So this one's called Scream and not Scream 5, even though it's Scream 5. It's making jokes about the reboot quel. A lot of people don't know what to call this, but the thing, it's called, in my brain, a reboot quel. The whole thing again and get people interested in this again with new characters, but let's also go ahead and close the gaps from the last one, because basically people, for whatever reason, want to know what happened to the characters from the prior aspects of the series, but they still would like to engage with the parts of the series that are fun. So what I mean to say there is like, they don't associate proton packs with Ghostbusters as characters and those proton packs being an essential icon in that movie to engage their character arc or something like that. They don't see it as a tool for narrative. They see it as a thing tangible in and of itself that exists in the real world that is cool, and they want to see more of it all the time. So what I mean to say is Ghostface is in the movie, but who cares? Like, yes, we have a ghost face, but like, you can go to Walmart and see a ghost face. I don't really know what makes Ghostface in particular cool, other than the fact that he's got that knife and he's got that mask and he does those phone calls, and that's sort of the bit. Understand that this is not to say that I think that the idea of it is bad. It's just that Ghostface as a character is like meant to represent this like antagonist in a way that doesn't actually necessarily need to be personified, which is to say, there is no Ghostface. I want to say again, there is no Ghostface. There is no Ghostface. There is no Ghostface. Ghostface is an idea. People embody Ghostface. They decide to be villains and kill people for theater for some reason. And I think that the movie's trying to talk about that. Nowadays, it seems that we've all got this desire to like try and make reality scarier than it even is, because reality is very scary, but in an intangible way. So there's like this desire for society to be like manifested in a violent way so that we can all kind of like process it in that way instead of processing it in the weird, we have to stay in our houses and work ourselves to death. It's like making the tangible, like the intangible, tangible. So we're given a crop of new characters for Scream 5, and they all kind of act exactly like 90s characters, and so you're kind of like, okay, we're now watching Scream again, but this time it's Scream again. So is the idea here to introduce the ideas of Scream, that horror movies are stupid and we should criticize how stupid they are, to younger people? Like, is this meant to make them interested in this? Because if so, why are there like way too many scenes of Courtney Cox and David Arquette having long-winded conversations about their divorce drama instead of anything happening in the movie that's actually critical of the industry that they're talking about? And the other thing is, I guess they kill off David Arquette pretty quick because they were like, oh boy, we don't want to deal with the fact that he's a fucking cop, so let's go ahead and just give him a hero's death so that we can't say anything bad about the fact that he was a cop. And so while, yes, he may objectively have helped with that whole Ghostface thing, he might have also done some racism, but we're not going to talk about that. It's weirdly like trying to make everything work. It doesn't really want to dive into the actual situation. And I found that really frustrating as a fan of this particular genre and also the way that this genre criticizes itself. I like that the movie was kind of critical of the fact that horror has changed. Like now we're talking about elevated horror and shit like that, not realizing that elevated horror is movies that are about something. Scream is movie that it's kind of about something, but then like the joke is like, well, yeah, it's about something, but this isn't about being about something. It's about enjoying violence. And I guess my question is just like, is engaging with horror movies about engaging with violence, or is it about engaging with problems? Horror movies are the way that we communicate our deepest, like, I don't want to deal with this, but I have to. I find it strange that people are like, okay, well, I hear you, but what if it was specifically about the violence in and of itself? So we had this weird thing with Halloween Kills, and we have it again with Scream, where it's like two series devoted to their own iconography more than they are to actually just telling a story. I wonder if there was like just a good slasher. Someone just made a good slasher, like Hellfest. I remember I was talking about that a couple years ago, and I was like, Hellfest is just a good slasher. Like, you go watch it, there's some critical stuff in there, there's some stuff to think about, but it's also just like, if you want to watch a slasher movie, might I recommend this one? It's new and fresh and different. Then enduring something like this with the expectation that it's going to somehow like give you a new perspective. So the one thing I remember in the movie very, very dramatically is the scene where Ghostface sticks his knife really, really deep in a guy's neck. And that guy is blonde and cute, and I hate that for me. I'm also thinking, dang, I remember when Michael Myers took like a big sharp object and jammed that into somebody's neck in Halloween Kills. The new Matrix movie is so about its own fame and its own like relationship with society. And so I was like, okay, maybe this Scream movie is trying to do what the new Matrix movie is doing. And then I went, wait a minute, why are all movies doing this? And I noticed a trend, and it began to upset me. And then by the end of the movie, it was very upsetting. But I realized that every movie, it seems, that has anything to do with a franchise that I'm engaging with is all about feeling guilt or trying to understand itself. It's almost like it's media analysis instead of art itself. They want their work to be more media analysis and critical analysis so that the audience can trust it, so they can watch it and go, yes, this has cred to me. Because when I really break it down and I think about it, I'm like, this really wasn't that great of a story. Now, I understand that the original Scream was not that great of a story either, but it was something, god damn it. There was something going on, and at least if it's a joke, I can handle it once, but we have done it 5 times, and each one of these movies they all want to be slightly different, and they all are kind of different based on variety of quality. But maybe if you're desperate for a movie this bad, then this one's just gonna blow your mind. But like, I saw Ghostbusters Afterlife. That movie was a self-obsessed pile of horseshit, some semblance of a heart and kind of a story. I gave it a little bit of a pass for that little bit of a heart and that little bit of a story. Ultimately, self-obsessed nightmare. The new Matrix is a self-obsessed nightmare, but I really liked it because it actually took the bull by the horns and went, hey society, why did you fuck up what I said with this movie? And it tries to say something else, and I thought that was pretty good. The new Halloween Kills is like, what if Halloween, but we analyze it over and over and over and over and over, and then they don't end up saying anything actually proactive about like police violence or society where we're all kind of put into this perpetual cycle of trying to understand ourselves in the context of victimhood. Instead, they just throw everything to the wind and they're just like, we'll just show the worst possible messaging. So Scream, like, does one of those two. Completely self-obsessed. Like, characters are related to the OG characters just so that they can say they're related, even though it doesn't matter. And they're like, obviously, you're the killer because you're the one that's related. And in the back of your mind, you're like, that's obviously not the way they're gonna go. And the way they do go is the dumbest and most predictable way. And I know a lot of people were like, no, it wasn't. But yes, it was. I will fight you. I saw it coming about a mile away. I don't know. So people are talking online about how spoiling the new Scream movie is really shitty to do and you shouldn't do it. So I'm not gonna do it. But I will say that if you didn't see it coming from the beginning of the movie, then have you not seen a Scream film before? And I guess that's just the thing. And I don't want this to come across like me trying to say that I have like galaxy brain thoughts and am somehow some genius smart person. I wanted this movie to try harder, to talk to me about itself. Like, if it's really gonna do it, I wanted it to try harder. The Matrix, the new Matrix movie, it might have been a mess and it might have been all over the place, but at least it did the damn work of trying to talk to me about itself. This one, like, literally verbatim says things about itself that are so shallow that I'm like, I could genuinely come up with more interesting thoughts about the thing they're trying to communicate to me. A lot of people will say it's just a dumb slasher. You should enjoy it for being a dumb slasher. But that's the problem. It's not. It's not a dumb slasher. The whole point is that, hi, hello, this is not a dumb slasher. This is a big, big, big galaxy brain slasher. But it's not. It's a small galaxy brain slasher. You know how there's that galaxy brain chart? It's like the top one, like Scream 5, right? You know, at the bottom, it's like, you know, some genuinely Uncle Boon me, some genuinely mind-bending shit. Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking, like, if you're a general audience member, maybe, but like, why? I don't know. Is it worth it? Should we really go back to the theater for this? I went back because I wanted to see the Saw movie. So I went and saw the new Spiral. I saw it and I was like, wow, this is weirdly about itself and like self-obsessed and about like weirdly pro-cop, I guess, even though it's trying to be not pro-cop. And then I saw the new Halloween, same problem. Saw this new Scream movie, same problem. So what is the deal with that? Anybody got an idea? Leave a comment below as to what the fuck the deal is with that. So listen, I don't want you to think that I hated it. I didn't hate it. I just like found it generally uninteresting. And I'm sad about that. Like, cause I found Halloween generally uninteresting and Ghostbusters generally interesting. Like the first time I watched The Matrix, like, take it or leave it. It took me a couple watches to really get in there. And it just feels like a lot of the things that we're doing now, especially with like a ton of money and a ton of resources, is trying to talk about things that I've already seen. I want to see something new. I desperately want to see something new. I went and saw Licorice Pizza, the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie, and no, I understand that comparing the new Scream movie to Licorice Pizza is not even comparable, not even in the same fucking universe or ballpark. Licorice Pizza is a movie about nothing, in the sense that it's about people that are just aimlessly in love and not actually doing anything about it. And it's fascinating. And it's so much more interesting. And there's so much human drama in it. And like, I love a slasher. But where's the fucking drama, man? I mean, they got all the old characters back and they basically just kind of girl bossed them, which is exactly what they did with Halloween. They were just like, what if they're girl bosses? What if Neve Campbell is a girl boss? What if Courtney Cox is a girl boss? And so it's kind of disingenuous to me. It feels like they don't want to talk about the deal. They just want to be like, these people are victims and they're awesome and hardened. And it's like, does victimhood harden you? I've had very bad things happen to me and I am a soft little bean. And sometimes, yes, victimhood hardens you, but why the fuck are they going after Ghostface 5 times when literally there isn't a Ghostface? Like, as I said, there is not one. Why is Sidney Prescott so obsessed with getting Ghostface when there isn't one? It's just some random person every time. So what? You're gonna go around and kill everybody who buys a Halloween mask? Like, come on. Girl boss hour. So thank you for watching my shitty video about this shitty movie. okay, it wasn't that shitty, and I'm not that mad about it, and I don't want people to think that I'm like really belligerently angry about it. I just was like super bummed out because I was like, man, I want something in here to be interesting and something to be like really just like, boom, but no, it still isn't happening. And I guess it's just like cinema has become kind of weirdly disappointing in that way. I want things to be about what they are. I didn't love Malignant, but I will say that I liked Malignant a lot more than I liked any of these other things for the sole purpose of they did something I had not yet seen in my life. But that said, even that is like a weird media analysis piece on Basket Case. We're simultaneously doing media analysis and now like analyzing things that are kind of cool, but at least that one showed me something interesting. This one just kind of showed me the same shit that I've already seen again, some more, again. But this one had a lesbian in it. So thank you for watching, and if you liked this video, consider subscribing and give it a like. Also, I want to give a big old thanks to my patrons over at patreon.com/NickSpheres. Y'all are cool and fun and great, and I want to give each of and every one of you a big old hug. Also, real quick, while I've got you here, I have CDs. That's right, May makes music. I have a hyperpop record. Weird to say. And then these are just kind of like general pop records, but check them out. They're on my merch store now, and I'm probably going to be getting more. I'm also looking into getting vinyl and t-shirts and cassettes and shit, because I'm really taking my music seriously these days. So please check that out if that's something that would interest you. And thank you so much for watching and continuing to be a subscriber for years and years. I love you. Here's a big old heart, and I'll see you next time.